Hey guys, LevelCap here and welcome to This Week in Gaming, your weekly news recap on everything going on in the world of video games. This week, some incredible twists and turns played out for Subnautica 2's developers. The Battlefield teams made a statement addressing the controversial universal weapon system in the next game. Star Citizen's cheating really hit a breaking point for the game. Escape from Tarkov made some deeply concerning changes, and much more. Last week's surprise firing of 3 key senior employees on the Subnautica 2 team has taken several dramatic turns. Following the firings, which included the studio founder, Charlie Cleveland, the game's early access launch has been delayed from this year to 2026. Reporting by Bloomberg suggests that Krafton dismissed these employees to force a delay, allegedly to deny them a $250 million bonus for hitting their 2025 launch deadline. And this story gets even crazier, but before we get into that, first I've got a quick word from today's sponsor. Today's video is sponsored by the action mech combat game Mecha Break. If you like giant robots ripping each other apart, and honestly, who doesn't, then Mecha Break is the game for you. This is a fast-paced third-person mech shooter that's free to play on PC and Xbox Series consoles with cross-play support. I've been putting hours into this game, and being able to just jump in for a few rounds and tweak my mechs has really kept me coming back. The combat is accessible but still has plenty of depth, and I could easily see it becoming one of those games that lets skilled players do some really crazy stuff. It features multiple modes like a 6v6 hero shooter, 3v3 deathmatch, and a PvPvE extraction mode. There's 15 total unique mechs to use. Each has its own very distinct playstyle, like ones that can do melee, others that can do sniper, ones that are more of support mecha. There's also a deep customization system that lets you tweak your mechs and pilots. Use my link in the description to download Mecha Break today, and thanks again to Amazing Season Games for sponsoring this video. Alright, back to the Subnautica 2 bonuses and firing situation. The fired employees have publicly stated that they were opposed to the delay and that the game was on track for a release this year. With the game delayed to 2026, Krafton don't seem contractually obligated to pay the bonus. Krafton has denied Bloomberg's report, stating that they were not influenced by any contractual or financial considerations. Instead, they claim the studio's leadership was more focused on personal projects than on Subnautica 2, which led to significant delays in the overall project schedule. Krafton says the delay is intended to ensure more content at launch and alleges that 90% of that $250 million bonus was allocated to the 3 fired employees rather than being distributed across the entire studio as Bloomberg had reported. Amid these developments, a leaked document surfaced online that appears to be an internal progress report from the studio, partially supporting Krafton's claims about the project's state. The document indicates that the studio has significantly reduced the amount of content and depth planned for the early access launch compared to targets set in 2023. However, the document's authenticity has not been verified, so it should be treated as speculation for now. In response to all of this, Cleveland posted an announcement on the game's subreddit stating, "We've now filed a lawsuit against Krafton, addressing accusations of his lack of involvement in development." He said, "Subnautica has been my life's work, and I would never willingly abandon it or the amazing team that has poured their hearts into it." Regarding the bonus distribution, he added, "Historically, we've always shared our profits with the team and did the same when we sold the studio. You can be damn sure we'll continue with the earn-out bonuses as well." Overall, the full story still needs more validation. Cleveland's alleged detachment from Subnautica 2's development appears linked to his involvement in the ongoing production of an independent film for which he posted an AI-generated poster. And while the leaked internal report is not the most damning evidence of major problems at the studio, it does align with Krafton's version of events. Ultimately, further reporting in the outcome of the impending lawsuit will be needed for clarity, but I think we can all agree that these timeline bonuses are probably a bad idea in the long run. When things don't go to plan, it means people are going to do whatever is needed to make sure they get those bonuses, and the publishers might do whatever is needed to prevent those bonuses. Just seems like a bad contract in general. In a somewhat expected move, it sounds like EA and DICE aren't abandoning their plans for unlocked class weapons in the next Battlefield title. A few weeks back, DICE broke the news that they were going to have a similar class weapon system as Battlefield 2042, with some class perks incentivizing you to use the weapon that was intended for your class, but not locking you to it. This is, of course, a controversial change as it makes a lot of classes feel very similar. Today, DICE made a new post called The Class System Part 2 that delves a bit deeper. In it, they detail a system that sounds somewhat reminiscent to Battlefield 5's, where you have a small skill tree where you can specialize and tweak the abilities of your weapons, but just with an open weapon system. The classes would then have skills that were more appropriate for specific weapon types, incentivizing players to use those weapons, but not necessarily locking them to. Personally, I'm very much on the side of a closed weapon system that further differentiates classes and how you play them and who chooses to play what classes and what role you play on a team. I think it helps out greatly, especially for like target identification. When you see a guy in a ghillie suit, you expect them to have a sniper rifle. If they have a machine gun, it just feels a bit different. If I had to guess, I think this system is being driven by some of their other game modes like the Battle Royale, where having an open weapon system makes a lot more sense. And rather than having to design a whole bunch of different weapon category systems for different game modes and complicating the development of the overall Battlefield experience, they just went, let's just create one universal weapon system that we'll shove into every single game mode, ultimately watering down the experience of all the modes to a certain degree. And that's probably what's happening here, though I have no confirmation of that. Star Citizen faced intense criticism from players this week, but not for the usual reasons like content delays. During its latest Free Fly event, the game was targeted by cheaters who caused widespread issues for many players, including the ability to empty inventories and instantly kill all players on a server. These hackers went unchecked for several days before developers regained control. In an official statement, the studio attributed the surge in cheating to their historically relaxed stance on third-party tools, which was intended to give players freedom to do things like VR support and localization. In response to the increased cheating, the studio is tightening its anti-cheat measures, which may result in some third-party software being blocked in the future. They have issued a wave of bans and implemented changes that, according to them, have already made a substantial impact. Two popular extraction shooters are making headlines for their controversial gameplay changes. In Escape from Tarkov, the latest wipe has fundamentally altered the progression and severely restricted how players access maps. The hardcore wipe, as developers call it, removed quests and forced players to queue up for 9 maps while playing raids on just 2, Customs or Factory. Instead of choosing any map from the main menu, players now just pick Customs or Factory, navigate to a transit point in the game, and then queue for their desired map. And as awkward as this process sounds, it's made even worse by extremely long queue times and load times, with one player saying they waited 22 minutes just to play on another map, only to be killed moments after they finally loaded in. Additionally, insurance has become much more expensive, further penalizing players starting fresh. These changes seem to be an attempt by developers to reset the game's balance and design. They say new quests will replace the removed ones in future updates, and the original vision was for all maps to be seamlessly interconnected, so the current system aligns with that original goal. Now, for one of the competing extraction shooters, Arena Breakout Infinite's players argued that the Season 2 update undermines the game's original hardcore design. This new update overhauls the storage system. Completing certain goals during a raid now unlocks special storage boxes that preserve loot even if you die. It also introduces a ping system similar to those in Call of Duty and Apex Legends, displaying location markers to all teammates. And while this makes the game more accessible, it reduces the need for teamwork and specific communication. Arena has always seemed like a more accessible Tarkov-inspired game, but these changes may have pushed it a bit too far to the detriment of the extraction elements. The Last of Us Part 2 received a surprise update this week, allowing players to experience the game in chronological order from start to finish. The original game was known for its non-linear narrative and gameplay, which had players switch roles mid-game and replay the story from a different perspective. The new update reorders everything chronologically, making the story easier to follow and helping players appreciate details that the original structure may have obscured. STALKER 2 is coming to PlayStation 5 later this year with a PlayStation 5 Pro update already in development. The game originally launched as a timed exclusive for PC and Xbox Series consoles, so the PS5 version is expected this holiday season. Ideally, the PlayStation 5 update will benefit from the major updates and patch releases since launch, as the game initially suffered from significant bugs and performance issues. Ready or Not's player count rebounded this week despite review bombing over upcoming content changes. Since leaving early access at the start of the year, player numbers have been steadily declining, reaching a low of about 6,000 concurrent players. However, at the start of the month, the count began climbing and recently peaked at over 17,000 concurrent players. The game's upcoming console release required developers to reduce nudity, gore, and make changes to some sensitive content to comply with legal restrictions. These changes are being applied across all platforms despite fan protests. That said, the increase in player count is likely due to a 50% discount during the Steam summer sale. The content changes will go live on the 15th, coinciding with the console launch. Call of Duty World War II was pulled from the Microsoft Store just days after being added to Xbox Game Pass. This version is reportedly outdated and unpatched, allowing hackers to perform serious exploits like remote code execution on victims' PCs, effectively giving them control of their system. Reports of widespread abuse quickly surfaced on social media. World War II uses peer-to-peer matchmaking, and without safeguards, this essentially connects players' PCs directly. The Steam and Battle.net versions appear unaffected, but Activision has delisted the game from the Microsoft Store while investigating. And that wraps it up for today's episode of This Week in Gaming. If you guys enjoy these weekly news updates, don't forget to drop me a like, subscribe for more content like it. And up next, check out this video on a massive Minecraft experience that fully replicates New York City down to the finest detail, or at least the details you can expect in a Minecraft game. It's really, really impressive. As always, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time. This is Level Cap, signing off.